And so yes, this is the corner tank, and like I said, I love the way the lighting from that tank sets a showcase up in the corner of this room. And we very much enjoy having this scene in our living room all the time. And so even when you're watching TV shows, especially during commercials, you automatically turn toward the tanks and just enjoy the activity of whatever's going on in those tanks. Get some sense of the schooling of the neons, and kind of spectacular to have so many neons. I've always been a kid that could only have one or two, and all of a sudden to be able to have, in this case, we added 12, we had 14, so there should be 26 altogether. And they tend to somehow get back to 12 again. I don't know why or how, but they do. And then there's that loach down running around. The loach is a very interesting fish. I thought they'd disappear into the undergrowth here and never be seen, but so far, since we put them in yesterday, they've been showing off and being very active where you can actually enjoy them. So you can see that one really going to town, and they both seem to hang out together and give us quite a show for our money. Okay, here it is, one day before my birthday, March 9th, 2019 rather. And been doing some work on the tanks just yesterday and today. My wife is the gardener of our team, and you're going to see in the boat tank on the other side of the living room here, her work versus my work here. The plants continue to do very well, as that fertilization program seems to be very effective. Again, that's the CO2 infusion liquid once a day, and then the leaf zone once a week, and then the plant tabs once a quarter. And so what I've tried to do here, the plants just overgrew this tank. I don't know if I caught a picture of it earlier or not, but basically they were crowding to the front, and that's a shame because this corner tank goes very deep. It's a pie-shaped tank, and so it's a challenge to landscape because you because you're going to lose that back depth. And so I've done a little bit of work here of moving the plants back a ways. It's interesting, a couple of things here. One, that Madagascar lace plant that I've always been so proud of has got very different leaves on it this time around. You remember in earlier videos, those leaves were very broad, and today they're growing back as sort of narrow. They get to the top of the tank, so they're 22 inches long. I finally measured the size of the tank, 22 inches long, and they tend to stay on the narrow side. But again, there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there's 8 leaves there right now, and so I'm pleased with that. The other thing that's interesting is, and I don't know if you're going to see this or not, all right, but right in the center here is what I'm calling a flower. It's from that Amazon sword in the back, and I'm going to try and zoom in on it here so you can see what I'm talking about. But it's not the runners that would have the baby plants on it. And there's 2 of them. There's one that's grown outside the surface water already up here. You can see the dark stem, even though you don't see the top end of it. But the top end looks the same as it does right here. And so I think it's some type of flower. It's not a flower in the sense of color, it's green. But anyway, and so the kabamba continues to flourish, and I've been cutting back on it and replanting it right over here beyond the left of the corkscrew vallisneria. And there's another, some type of small val right here. See that one in front? Looks like it's got potential. It's holding its own, and then you've got the corkscrew valve right behind it. And then just to the right of that, which I'm still very proud of, is the Amazon sword plants that seem to be doing well, from a small one in the front, the middle one behind it, to the big one in the background. And so it's interesting to see the different types, I guess, of Amazon that grow so differently. The other plant that I just trimmed back a little bit, and I think this is a type of Amazon also, I could be wrong, but it's got a nice coloration to it. And so I took out probably about 10 stems from it, or 10 leaves. And then to the right, you have some Anubias, or what's that curly one right there? That's not Anubias. Cryptocarine. And then over here to the right, we have some jungle valves, which don't have the corkscrew aspect of it, but grow to the top of the tank, which the Vallisneria, corkscrew Vallisneria do not. And then in the back, we still have that other leafy plant that right this minute I can't think of its name. And I've had to cut that back because it grows to the point where it takes over the top of the tank and cuts back on the light. Next thing you know, I've got problems with the other plants not getting the light. On the fish side, yesterday I was at the fish factory, and lo and behold, let's see if I can capture the one right here on the stem of the, there he is. That's an Ocelinus, is it? They had them $2.99 for one, 3 for $9.99, which you figure out is more expensive than they are individually. So I pointed out to Dennis there, great guy, great help, and lo and behold, he said, "Oh, that's meant to be 4 for $10, 4 for $9.99." So I said, "Oh, what the heck? Let's get 4." They're always interesting to add another variety in here. Also trying something different in here right now. There is up in the upper right-hand corner here a nice blue betta. He's just going to wave in the back there. You can see him by getting close. He came over from that small betta tank that we set up at Christmas time, okay? And the leaves in the front are changing the automatic focus, so it goes out of focus on us. Sorry about that. Anyway, I just moved him over from that small tank yesterday because I was at the fish factory and couldn't resist a very attractive betta there. And I didn't have any more tanks. And so lo and behold, there's the red one that I'm going to talk about in just a second. And so yes, I have 2 male bettas in the same tank. And I've been doing some listening on YouTube recently. Some hobbyists are talking about the fact that the male bettas can coexist in a big tank like this with plenty of plants. And so I'm going to try that out. And so the blue one is just up here in the left-hand corner now. And that's the closest I've seen them. And so they have not been fighting with each other. But again, there's so much they can do in terms of the plant life. And they tend to stay hidden in the plants. There's the red one buried in the floating plants there. And so we're going to see how that works out. So along with those small Ocelinus, there's 4 of them there. Let's see if I can show you that one. There he is. 1 of 4. And just get something interesting because they tend to glom onto the front surface of the tank and move around nicely. So we'll see how they make out. And all in all, don't have much of an algae problem anymore here. And the other snail issue that we've been addressing recently is working out well. There is only 1 left of the 2 clown loaches that we put in here, but they cleaned up the snails nicely. Although my wife says she saw quite a few last night, so I'm not sure about that. But meanwhile, we've got babies in this tank, and they're all different sizes. So some are just born, and others have been around a little bit, so they're surviving. Now, we'll see what happens with the 2 bettas in there, because as Ray would often tell me, the bettas are hunters. They go looking for food, and so they look for these babies. The rest of the fish seem to leave them alone. And so there's some of them that are growing up even in this community tank, as opposed to the office tank, which has a little bit more baby growth and hidden areas for the babies to grow up in. Here's that red one. So we have a bright red one over in what I'm calling now the betta tank. We have 1 young one here, and that blue one came over, and I'll show you that other one that I couldn't resist just yesterday. This one plant in the left corner of this view is the one I bought. It cost me about $7, I believe. It was part of a huge, beautiful plant which would have filled this tank if I'd gotten it. And it was so tempting. If I had room for it, and I estimated it would be worth about $100, and I asked them what it would actually go for if I bought the whole thing, roots and all. And he estimated it $90. I was so tempted. It was so beautiful. Imagine that coloration and those leaves in a huge, I would say 20 inches high, maybe 8 inches across, 9 inches across, as one big plant. Really very pretty. Very, very pretty. As I said, Discus Man has had an excellent choice of plants, all grown right there. Can't say enough about the place. Union, New Jersey. Take a ride if you get a chance. Let's move over to the boat tank. Now this tank also was very overgrown yesterday, and as I was describing, my wife, who's very much into this hobby with me, got into this and really replanted it. But I want to catch while I've got them. There's 3 new angelfish. We lost all our angels. There's something wrong here, but I keep hoping, and so I picked up 3 of them from the fish factory yesterday. Medium-sized angels, which in the chain stores are still pretty expensive these days. These were, let's see, the 3 of them were $12, okay? If you bought one, I think it was $4.99. If you bought 3, they came out to $4 a piece. And so they look kind of nice, and that, I moved over the pearl gouramis here. And you see the planting much clearer now that she's brought things together and cleaned it out in terms of providing space, especially for the plants there to the left, Vallisneria or whatever. And although the Amazons aren't doing so great, as you can see right here, as they were before. So I'm not sure what that's about. I dosed the fertilizer yesterday, so maybe they'll come back. But again, this particular tank has one of my favorites again, the Madagascar lace plant, and she's highlighted that right out in front now, so you can see it against the colorful Ludwigia. But I'm also very pleased with just down to the right here. You see that dwarf lily type thing? That just came back. I had the bulb here for a while, and the leaves just started sprouting a couple weeks ago, and they're coming out nicely. This has become a tank of gouramis. You see the 1 or 2 plecos in there that keep the algae down for me. There's 4 clown loaches in here, and one just disappeared back there. I was trying to catch it for you. But no snail issue at all in this particular tank. Not necessarily because the clown loaches, just never had a problem in here. But we do have a nice school of 5 blue gouramis, and that was raised. Big one came down from his tanks, and then I've added a couple others here. And I see one of those clown loaches, very small, but very colorful, and I'm hoping that they thrive to the point where they grow up to the full size where they are so nice. And so there's 4 of them. They tend to school, and you're told to keep them in schools, but typically that can be expensive. A school of 4 of these, easily $6.99 a piece. You're talking 4 times 7, $28. Oh, the lights just went off for the noontime cut back on the lighting, but the camera's adjusting, so you may not notice much of a difference. And so there is one of the tricolored sharks. Again, very pretty. The red-tailed shark is in here someplace, and he is really growing out nicely. If I see him going by, I'll try and capture him for you. But all in all, this tank is doing well, and again, as much as I like the thick jungle effect where the fish can really hide, I really am pleased when Pam gets involved in this and does her magic and spends a good hour or more moving things around and making the plants more visible. And so a lot of the structures that we had in this tank are gone, making room for the plants. And the other shote plant next to the Madagascar lace here is that frilly-leaved right there. And that's the, I forget what that is. But again, Madagascar is really my pride and joy right at this particular minute. There's the tricolor shark, keeping it clean of the algae that so often fills in the spaces on the beautiful lace leaves of the Madagascar lace plant that kills it. And so this is a new one, picked up a couple weeks ago over at the Hidden Reef for about $5.99, I believe. And it's growing out nicely. We've taken some leaves off it, but it's doing well. Oh, that's the tricolor shark chasing each other. I was hoping he brought out the red-tailed shark for you so you can see what he's doing. Something else that's in here, and I'm not sure if I'm seeing it down in the plants over here on the left. Yeah, it's going to be back here. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it or not. There's another bed in here, and we lost that really interesting white one. But now he's back among the leaves. You're not going to get to see him. There's one of the other clown loaches, one of 4. But I found another young white one, white betta, male betta, that is gorgeous, and the fins on it are that iridescent blue-white color. Should be very, very. And here pretty. Comes the white betta around the side. Maybe I can get them this way for you. Iridescent oyster shell type fins when the light hits it just right. Beautiful fish. Would love to get corresponding black one that they have out these days. And I have been keeping very, very pretty. The other thing that's doing well, I mentioned once before, we got a couple of these albino bristlenose plecos. And so there you see that one at the base of the plant, that lily plant. And so they're thriving. Again, another one of the clown loaches. A couple live bears in here, you saw that platy. Not sure what this plant is, but we just moved it down. And even though I have a lot of plants, I can't resist when I go to some of these places, like the fish factory. They're doing a beautiful job. Danny and Dennis doing a really good job of keeping a nice supply of well-displayed plants. And they're organized in such a way that you can really see how good they look. And I always end up buying 1 or 2 of them, even though I have to find space for them when I finally get them. The other things that are doing well are these algae eaters, and there's been some dispute as to whether they're algae eaters or what's the other one that looks like it. Anyway, these 2 are 2 of the 3. The third one is in the corner tank we just visited, and they do a nice job keeping the algae down, so I didn't want to take all 3 of them over here. But they've grown pretty big. And I had another 3 that look like the same fish, but they aren't growing out at all. They tend to school in pairs at least. Surprising. One thing I'll say for the Hidden Reef, and there's a lot of things good to say about it, is when you go in the door, they have literally 50 to 100 male bettas in little bowls, and the prices are reasonable. The ones at $2.99 are just as pretty as the ones that are $15.99, even though they tend to be rarer varieties, I guess, with the crowns and whatever other varieties they have. There's that other pleco doing his work down there. They're growing out nicely also. But anyway, when you go there, you can't resist, especially when it's only $2.99, to get a beautiful male betta. So I'll take you over to the betta tank and show you the one I just bought. Again, need it like a hole in the head, but hey, for the price and how different it looked, I couldn't resist. Okay, this is the betta tank that, of course, you've seen before, but one on the left has been there a while. That's the bright red one. And the one on the right is the new one. And I'm trying to see if I put a little bit of food in there, whether he'll come out so you can see him a little bit better. The colors are just so vibrant in him. I couldn't resist. So let's see if I can urge him to come out. Usually with some food, they'll come to the front where the light will catch those colors. You gotta be careful with a small tank like this that you don't overfeed them. See, the red one's going to react right away, but and so I took the blue betta. Here he comes. There we go. There we go. I took the blue betta that was in the right half of this divided tank and put him over in that corner tank that I showed you before, and thought this would be a better display for the coloration that you're seeing in that one on the right now. And they do very well here. They even do better here than they do in the community tank, surprisingly enough. So I'm very pleased with that. And the lighting in this doesn't do these bettas justice unless they just get in the right position, but they're two beautiful fish. And they do very well in this with live plants. You see the banana plant is really taking off in the right-hand side there. And the Amazon sword on the left side is doing well. Here we're getting a little bit of the coloration. The bright red, deep scarlet red of the one on the left, and the one on the right has a variation of red going into blue around a crown type fin. And it's amazing how well those fins develop when they're isolated like this and not being chased by something else, I guess. Started feeding them bloodworms yesterday, frozen bloodworms. I've never done that before, but with some recent advice from Discus Madness, I decided to try it, and they certainly enjoyed them. You can see that tail fin on the one on the right in the light. Very pretty fish. All right, we're going to move here off to the office tank. So, till then. Okay, we're looking at the office tank now. And you see we have two clown loaches in here. There's one of two. Again, trying to control that snail population that was overrunning. And plants are doing well here too. The water wisteria is growing beautifully, as you can see on the left-hand side there. And so it didn't do well in the boat tank, but it's doing well here. Now you're going to say, what the heck is he doing? He's got a goldfish in his tank. And yes, I do. This was the recommended way to get rid of snails. And he didn't do much in that corner tank, so I moved him back here. And between the clown loaches that entered at the same time and him, he's growing nicely, we now have a goldfish, which is eventually going to end up in my sister's pond. But for right now, I'm going to move him into one of the bigger tanks because he's getting kind of big. The other thing you see here is a lot of the gold mollies, they call them. And they look so pretty. I couldn't resist yesterday getting a pair of lyre-tail gold mollies at the fish factory. And also some guppies that looked kind of fancy. I'm not really into breeding fancy guppies or anything like that, but at the same time I wanted to take advantage of a reasonably priced. You have that scissor tail one there. You've seen that before. This very nice black veil tail one that just disappeared on us. And then there's a couple others that you may or may not see. Here's one that just struck my fancy. They had a really pretty iridescent top fin, for example, that I found kind of unique right there. There's two of them. And they also had a pretty female. There she is. Oh, right on cue. Thank you, dear. So this tank has got itself quite a little variety. The plants, the water wisteria are doing better than anything. There's the Amazon sword you see in the center there. and the rest of the plants are pretty much overgrown here. And the babies tend to survive in here. There's no bed in here right now. I usually have one in here, but for the sake of the babies sometimes I don't. And there's one of the young ones that are growing up off to the right. Here the office tank is really looking great since I cleaned it out yesterday. Plants tend to overgrow, which is what I like. And the water came out clear as can be after I changed the filter and scrubbed the glass on this 30-gallon hex tank. Fish are doing well. A lot of babies given the plants here. You see the water wisteria doing very well here on the left-hand side. And the Amazon sword in the back is also doing very well. Two new male guppies we just picked up yesterday at the aquarium center down in Blackwood. Very different looking males. I don't know if we're going to get a chance to see them here or not. They've just been added, and they are almost white. I see one in the back corner, but you're not going to see it here. You did see the clown loach. Both of them doing well here, keeping the snails well under control. And having straightened this tank out a little bit, you can see the Amazon sword doing well back there. And especially interesting is the water wisteria that has grown so strong in this particular tank, the left-hand corner there of this 30-gallon hex tank. And it does not grow well in the other two tanks. So I'm not sure it's temperature, light. This gets a little bit of ambient light from the window behind it. And you can see one of those clown loaches here doing its thing. It was interesting yesterday. I was watching it actually take the innards out of a snail. And I know they do that, but I hadn't seen it before. And so there's two of them in here, 4 in the bow tank, and the remains of the last one in the corner tank disintegrated yesterday. So I guess we're not going to see that white male guppy that we just got yesterday. The split tail ones look pretty cool, and I hadn't seen those in many years, so I couldn't help but pick them up when I saw them. You see them right here in the center. Look very different. A lot of live bears in this tank shedding babies, and there's plenty of growth to hide the babies, so they seem to be thriving and living. Not in terms of the hundreds, but enough that they're starting to grow, and you can see some of the smaller ones coming into adulthood there. Again, just a very enjoyable tank.